Awesome. Great. Hi. Thank you. My name is Hayley Serpa. I am a second-year PhD student in the History of Science and Medicine program here. And my research broadly examines how population became a central scientific category in the human life and social sciences in Latin America, really thinking of anthropology, sociology, biology, pedagogy, and psychology. And I really focus on the late 20th, early 21st century in Latin America, where women became really integral to the project of population science, despite their roles being almost consistently invisibilized. So starting in the 1960s, Latin American universities established population studies programs across the region, creating institutional spaces where many women could enter the sciences for the first time and become a part of this project of population knowledge. And some of the questions that my research is interested in asking include who counts and whose work counts, how is population knowledge made, by whom, and to serve whom. And this summer, with the support of RITM, I was able to conduct archival research across Peru, primarily in Lima, in national municipal archives, universities, hospitals, scientific institutions, and museums, really focusing in on the labor behind population science and the creation of this corpus of numbers. So for example, there's Violeta Sara Lafos, a feminist sociologist and demographer who conducted some of that foundational work in Peru when it comes to fecundity and migration surveys, as well as Elsa Alcántara, who was the first woman to graduate with a degree in anthropology from a Peruvian university, as well as later president of AMIDEP, the premier inter-university network of population research in Peru. Most histories of science and development in modern Latin America tend to focus on male technocrats and economists tied to the United Nations, the World Bank, and USAID. But instead, my archival work really focuses in on the invisibilized labor of demographers, nurses, social scientists, teachers, really illustrating what I think and what other historians of science have coined as the Matilda effect. The Matilda effect specifically describes the systemic exclusion of women's contributions to historical narratives of science. And I think this is very much what we see here in Latin America in the 20th century. I also pursued a side project tracing how population logics extend beyond human bodies. So I was able to visit Tingo Maria in the Peruvian Amazon, where I visited a butterfly farm that had been funded by development agencies, including USAID. And here we can see how thinkings of population ecology and entomology are also, folding in butterflies into projects of managing life. And with this, I sort of all come together to share how population has really never been neutral. It is instead made, managed, and contested through gendered and racialized labor. And by centering women scientists, health workers, and educators, my research argues that population is not just counted, but is instead something that is made and a site for constant negotiation. So thank you. And I'll take any questions.
Okay, I was just curious as to how the kind of freeze and eventual, it wasn't just a freeze, but eventual pause of US aid in Latin America during this time, well, it really started in February, but then extended for many months, affected your research, if at all, in Peru specifically, working with these organizations that were reliant on US aid, but then because of administration changes and all of that, we're no longer able to receive funds or things like that. Did you see that come into play with the people that you were working with, the orgs that you were working with? How did you, kind of situate yourself in your work in that kind of afterfall of U.S. aid, quote unquote?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I think one of the things that stood out to me is how creative these groups can be when it comes to, I think, resourcing funding, but also I still think working within the confines of very much a global system of capitalism. So in particular with the butterfly sanctuary, we saw this transition towards a global export of butterfly insects, and that being now their sole sort of business. So they're very much, the word that they use to describe themselves now is a bionegocio, un negocio biológico, so a biological business. So again, we're thinking here of how extractive ideas of reproduction on bodies of humans can also be seen sort of playing out on ideas of animals and insects in this case. So yes, I think my response would be we see them going into other sort of streams also because of, I think, constraints due to global market. Awesome, thank you.